If you could, would you rather be an American than a Malayan?
No, because in spite of all the formality and rigidness that we are subject to, I am sure the Malayan way of life has more to offer me and has more variety than the American.
Would you rather be an American than a Greek?
No, I think that people here are too much interested in what others think of them, and so are not quite independent in thinking.
Would you rather be an American than a Thai?
No. If being civilized means to show less respect to my parents and my teacher, and to go to every Saturday night party, I would rather be a barbarian.
Would you rather be an American than an Egyptian?
No, I would never give up my great civilization, my glorious history and culture to be an American. Yet I wish our living standard was as high as that in America. I wish that our country would be completely rid of the traces of ignorance, poverty, and disease which prevailed in the past centuries.
Forum for high schools. It features 34 teenagers from as many countries in unrehearsed discussion of some of their common problems. Each of these young people is the winner of a nationwide forum competition sponsored by the Ministries of Education in their own countries. They were brought here by Pan American World Airways and Trans World Airlines and are spending 3 months in the United States as guests in 4 different American host families and host communities. But let me introduce you to the 4 students that are participating in this discussion. From Malaya is Lei Hup Swan. Hup Swan, how are things going?
Well, at first I was rather lost. I did not know what was expected of me, and I did not know that I could speak to my elders as I would to an equal. And, well, but now everything has gone on fine. And my first family was very kind to me, and they're just wonderful. They made me feel very much at home.
I'm glad to hear that. From Thailand, Saroj Chawanaviraj. How about you, Saroj? Any problems?
Yes. At first I thought that the family didn't trust me because they never leave me alone.
But now you've cleared up that misunderstanding, have you? Part of our hospitality.
Yes.
From Greece, Angeliki Layu. Ike, how are things going with you? You had any problems?
Well, at first I made a very great mistake, it seems, because they asked me if I was thrilled to be in America, and I answered no. Because when I was in Greece, I said that I wouldn't be too much, I don't know, impressed by everything I saw here. And everything was so imposing, and it seems that many people right from the beginning tried to make me say that I was thrilled to be in America, and so I wouldn't do it.
Ike, I know how you feel. I've seen so many American tourists. The first minute they're on foreign soil, they think everything there is wrong and everything at home is better. I feel for you. How about you from Egypt, Ahmed Atteya?
Oh, I'm having a wonderful time, Mrs. Wallard. My family and host schools have been as kind as possible, and I have felt at home from the very first moment I went to them. One difficulty I'm having with, I'm afraid, is the food problem. The food over here is quite different from that in Egypt. In Egypt we have more fat in it, more spice, more pepper and so on. And one Egyptian influence that I left on my first family was that they now eat with Tabasco sauce all the time.
Look, before we start our discussion, since we're on the subject of culture tonight, I wonder if you could tell me quickly what in your language corresponds to our American greeting of, hi, how are you? What in Chinese?
Well, when we meet a friend, we say, Chap pa boy. It means, have you eaten your dinner?
How about Thailand?
We said, Pai nai ma. It means, where are you going?
And Greece?
We say Yasu, that means health to you.
And in Egypt?
We say Assalamu alaikum, means greeting, and the answer would be Alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and that is greeting and the same to you with God's mercy and grace.
And any proverb, we talk so much about time in America, anything like time is money or anything like take it easy? How about Thailand?
Yes, we have. Cha-cha dai pra song lem ngam. This means hasten slowly and you will succeed.
How about Greece?
Well, in Greece we say spevde vradeos, which means hasten slowly.
Same as in Thailand then?
Yes, almost.
It's different than take it easy, isn't it?
Oh, certainly.
How about Egypt?
We say al-agalatu bin ash-shaytan, and that is speed is from the devil.
Now, to get the things a little more serious, a moment ago, when I asked you whether you'd rather live in America than in Thailand, Saroj, you indicated that you wouldn't because people here are, well, you didn't say this, but I think what you meant was that they're rude. That is, that human beings don't show enough consideration to each other, right?
Yes.
But Ike? You seem to be saying that you didn't like America for the opposite reason, because people gave so much consideration to the opinions of others that they weren't quite free to be themselves. Now, isn't there something of a contradiction here? Well, before I ask you to answer that question, would it be a good idea to get a few more facts in front of us about how free is life in your own families and communities, and how free isn't it? Do you want to start us off with Malaya's one?
Yes, I would like to. Well, in my opinion, I think that Malayan teenagers have a harder life, and it's stricter in many senses. And I think that they do not enjoy as many privileges and as much freedom of movement and action as the Americans do. Well, you see, my parents believe that we children should be seen and not heard. We usually during meals, there's not so much conversation as there is in America, and we usually have very little conversation, and what little we have is very formal.
Is that the same way in Thailand?
At home, I have to show much respect to my parents and grandparents. We can't sit higher than them. When we pass them, we must bow ourselves and ask them to excuse us. And any advice they may give to us, we must believe them, even we didn't like it. And about teenagers, we don't like rock and roll or things like that. We just want to listen to it only.
You say you have to do what they tell you to do, whether you want to or not. For example, suppose you were playing a record or playing the piano, and they told you to stop.
Yes, we must stop it without any complaining.
And you can't even show on your face that you don't like it.
Sometimes we just show it hiddenly.
How about Egypt, Ahmed?
Well, in Egypt, the relations between the children and the parents is on a more formal basis. You have an exchange of respect, I'd say. For instance, when the parents enter a room, we all have to stand up in most cases. And when we're at a meal, we have to wait till they start to eat. For instance, here in the American families, I would see parents entering the room, and the children would be just lying around, lounging without standing up. In the table, they would start eating before the parents would. And in some cases, they call their parents with their first name in some cases. And we don't have that in Egypt. There is a sort of... one thing I admire about American families is the sort of intimacy, friendly intimacy between a child and a parent. In some cases, you have the boy might get his girlfriend to his house or vice versa, and they would show them to his parents, and he would confide in his parents and so on. That is one thing we don't have in most Egyptian families. But I think informality is a good thing to some degree, but excess of it would tend to go to disrespect and ill manners, I'd say. How is it in Greece, Angela? Is it the same way, or do they treat the parents more formally? Do they have more respect to the parents?
Well, I think we should make the distinction between if they treat them more formally and if they do have more respect to them. I think that we do treat our parents more formally. I mean, no one would think of calling his father or mother by his first name, but I have found that many of the children here do obey their parents more than we do. Maybe it's only because children here don't think so much and are not so individualistic or something like that as we are. But I do find that certain things that we wouldn't do. I mean, if my mother would tell me not to wear this dress or not to comb my hair in a certain way, I would do it in spite of her advice, maybe. But children here wouldn't do it. I mean, they would follow their mother's advice, I think.
Well, I had the impression that American children would do anything. I mean, they wouldn't pay as much attention as people from different other countries would to their parents. I mean, in some countries, especially in Egypt, for instance, if a girl was told not to put on lipstick in some cases, she would definitely not do that.
It's the same in our country too. We are not allowed to disagree, and from very young we are taught to obey them, and any argument we have would be they are looked upon as disobedience.
I see.
And if we do argue with them, we are due for a lengthy lecture, and which sometimes lasts for days. And well, we are taught that as a person grows older, he becomes wiser. But personally, I think it's not true. Because if you have a fool, I mean, if a person is born a fool, and if he lives to be 100, he'll still be a fool.
Yes, that is very true. What do you think? Would you prefer the relations between children and their parents in Malay, especially under the circumstances that exist? Would you prefer them to be as it is here? I mean, or would you like it to remain as it is now?
I think the Americans are a bit too free. I mean, the relations, you find the children answering the parents at times, and well, you find them arguing with each other, and well, we wouldn't dream of doing it in Malaya.
But don't...
Excuse me just a minute. Saroj, what are some of the practices you've seen in American families that haven't quite conformed to what you would do at home?
I agree with Suan that our children here have so much freedom. They can play with their parents, and they can talk back to their parents, and they can stroke their parents' heads or hair, play with the parents' head, which this thing is very impolite in my country.
But is showing affection to a parent, is it showing love to a parent, is that, would you call
But
that...
it's disrespect. I mean, our form of respect, according to our form of respect,
Yes.
we are not allowed to touch them on the head and on the shoulders. I remember once when I was a bit younger, I went up to my aunt and placed my hand on her shoulder, and I got a scolding for it.
But one of the most wonderful things in life for a mother or father is to have a child put his hand on her cheek. Can't you do that?
No, we aren't allowed to. It's well, it's not respectful of us if you do that.
And what did you mean, Saroj, when you said parents play with their children? What kind of games have you seen?
I've seen them playing snowball together, and the children start to throw the snowballs to their parents first, and some of them hit their parents' head, and nothing happened. If it is happened in my country, the children will be hit to death.
But do you agree that there shouldn't be any sort of intimate relations between a child and the parents? Shouldn't they get to, I mean, after all, it's their father and mother, shouldn't they get to know them more? Shouldn't they get to love them? How would the child who won't understand, how would he love his parents?
I think you're going too far there, Ahmed. You yourself told us that in your country you're very formal.
Yes, that is true. I agree with a certain formality, but excess of it is not too good, too.
But don't you think it's being a bit too formal with standing up when your parents come in?
Yes, it is too formal, and that is one thing. I mean, we shouldn't go to extremes. That is one thing.
Could I get you into another area? Because you represent so many different religions, I want very much to know what role religion plays in the home compared to the role you've seen here in America.
Well, I think in my country, we consider religion as a more important thing. Because you see, our people would sacrifice anything. They'll go without for a few days to get to get enough money to buy something worthwhile to offer to the gods. Like for example, they'll buy cakes or anything to offer, and these cakes are, well, it won't serve as food, and it's quite expensive too.
Do they distribute them after to the people?
Oh, they distribute them to the children, but
I see.
well, the parents don't get to eat, and we have so many gods and so many feast days that it's quite a burden on the people.
Would you think that religion in your country sort of hinders an advancement in some ways?
It represents our culture, so I don't think it can be dealt with in that
you
way.
were talking about the sweet cakes that you gave the gods.
Oh,
Why?
yes.
Must it always be sweet?
No, you see, it's sweet and it's very sticky, and it's believed that when the god eats it, its teeth will be stuck together, and when it goes to heaven, he can't complain to the high god about what we have done, and our fortunes will be the same. That's what most Chinese believe.
Can we ask about Thailand?
Yes.
What role does religion play in your family?
I think it's almost the same as Suan too. We do the same way as her too.
Yes, it's because both of us are Buddhists.
Yes. But we have a guardian in our house, and we have to build our little home for the guardian of our house. And on the New Year's Day or all the special occasion, we bring food to the Guardian's house too.
And what about, do you have a regular Sunday, a regular day every week when you go to worship?
Yes, we have our Sabbath day every week, but it depends on the fate of the moon.
It isn't always the same day of the week.
No,
then?
it isn't.
And what do you do on Sunday?
We can go to every temple we want to, and then we sit on the floor, folding our legs and listen to the monk reading the Bible, the Buddhist Bible, and then the monk will tell a story to compare of what he has said, and then he'll wish us to be good in health and everything, and then the service is over.
Is that all the religious training you get, or do you have some period when everybody gets special religious training?
I don't.
Will you, for example, I've heard that many Thai boys at 20 have to spend several months being a monk. Will you too?
Yes, I will.
And does every boy do that?
Most of the boys in Thailand do like this, because we believe that every man in Thailand should become a monk for at least 3 months will be the best.
Do they usually continue, some people? I mean, if they become a monk for some time, do they usually continue for that? Or take it?
Most of them don't, but some of them do too.
Ike, can you tell me about religion in your country?
Well, the state religion in Greece is Greek Orthodox. It's something, well, it's very near to Catholicism, but there are some differences in the way we conduct our mass and so on, and some dogmatic differences as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I think something that is quite interesting in my country is that many people do believe in this particular religion, some of them without even quite discussing why they believe in this religion, if it is the best one, and so on. And I think that maybe this kind of, well, you could call it nationalism in some way, may result from the fact that our country has been under the Turkish occupation for 100 years. And all these people had to stick together, and the head of the religion was the head of the state, of the country. And so they had to believe in something and to hold on to something in order to continue to live as a race. So maybe this is a reason why almost every Greek person is so religious.
What about a religion as you've seen it here in the United States, Ike?
Well, I think that here people seem to be more religious than in most European countries.
That's where I disagree with you. In Malaya, we are more religious than
I said
Americans.
European countries, I'm
Yes,
sorry.
I know.
But maybe this can result from the fact that most of them, when they first came here, were Puritans or something like that, and many people came here in order to find freedom in believing in a certain God or in a certain church, and maybe they too had to stick together in order to survive, and they under the auspices of the church. But what really surprised me was the tolerance that the people here have towards other religious sects, such as, I don't know, Islam or Judaism or something, but the intolerance, the complete intolerance I found here towards people who do not believe in God, or who, I don't know, who just search for the truth and have not decided yet. And, well, I think that this may result from a lack of thought, of real deep thought, because I believe that people here don't quite think about the many important things. And
I want to be sure I understand you. When you say people here are intolerant, if you're searching, you mean if you're an agnostic or an atheist,
that's
people
what
are
I mean.
intolerant of that. They'll tolerate any religion no matter what. How did you find that out?
Mrs. Waller, I didn't find anything of that sort. I found the people very kind, and I mean, they tolerate us, and I can't say that I'm a very good Buddhist. Sometimes I tend to be quite agnostic.
But you believe in God, don't you?
Well, I'm
In the
agnostic.
idea of God.
I'm not sure yet, but still I find they tolerate me a lot.
One thing that I found in my second host family, and that is that the family consists of 4 people, I think, and the father goes to a different church, the mother goes to a different church, the son goes to a different church, and the daughter goes to a different church. That is something really amazing. It shows you the tolerance of how American do tolerate religious feeling. I mean, The son I heard from my host mother that they took him at a certain age to all the churches, and he chose what church he wanted to go to. And that is amazing. That is really amazing.
Yes.
Did we cut you off before, Ike, when you were starting to talk about freedom of thinking and thinking through what one wanted to?
Yes. I'd like to say that usually we think that Americans are very free to, in every sense maybe. Well, I found out that really they are not free in some ways. Because first of all, well, I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, but I haven't been able to discuss religion with people who I know who seem to be free thinkers. And then they, at schools, when they discuss communism, for example, I don't think they are thinking freely. I think they are taking ideas and opinions which are very cleverly put into their minds by some other people, elder people or something, and they take them as facts and they start the discussion from then on. And they don't try to discuss these certain ideas and to see if they are true or not, or if something different may exist or something. And, well, I think that in general, they don't quite care so much for such theoretical, you might call, discussions, but they more or less try to find a practical way of applying ideas and opinions in the everyday life. And I think that this is quite a difference between, well, maybe American culture or, well, yeah, American culture, I might say, and Latin or Greek culture, because we hold more to intellectual things than here. But maybe in some ways this is not so good, because people in my country care maybe too much for intellectual things and don't quite realize that everybody can't be as intellectual as everybody else, and that some people have to do all the other things, and they must be proud of themselves if they do them well. I admire this.
Don't you think that one thing that is for we Eastern countries and for we countries who have a history and a culture, don't you think that is an advantage for us? I mean, to have so many traditions and such a glorious history for many of our countries. You see, the people, I don't know how it is in Greece, but I suppose it's the same, because when a country has a great history, the people usually look forward into doing something of the sort. That is one thing that is you don't find in America. You don't find any traditions, any customs in America. Everything is purely is very new, and the differences you find so many different people living here and different.
Now, are there any advantages? You've given us all eloquent proof of some of the disadvantages from your points of view of a lack of tradition and a set society and a formal society. Have you found any advantages? If you haven't, say so, but if you have,
Well,
I'd like to know what they are.
One thing, it does not tie them back to the past. That is one thing. They are free, I mean, to go ahead. They don't have anything to tie them back. That is one advantage they have to their favor, yes.
Yes, and I find that this is quite a great advantage, because in my country, many people are held back by this idea, because many people say, oh, our ancestors and how great they were and so on and so forth. But they just stop there, because it's hard to go on and to try to reach the point that our ancestors have reached, and to try to maybe, I don't know, find something better in some ways. And, well, I think that it is a great advantage.
But don't you think it's a good idea to hold on to your customs? I mean, you can progress, and yet you can still keep some of the customs.
You should keep
No.
some of the customs.
Yes, I think you should keep them.
No, when times are changing, if you keep on to your old customs, I think you can't exist. You can't go on. Something will happen that will change. I mean, you can find that in a very, I know, obvious example. In the French Revolution, for example, the life had changed, but the patterns of life had remained the same. So it had to change. It changed violently.
Well, now, how are you changing in Malay? Are you still completely tradition-bound? What new things are coming in, 20th century things?
We have our modern machines and all that, but I still think that we should keep on to our old customs. I think it's a nice idea.
Well, how do you feel yourself? You've seen freedom here, and you've said you have so little. As a teenager,
Well, like most teenagers in the world, I sometimes feel very rebellious and, well, sometimes very disgusted at the way my elders treat me, like a small child. And I think they should wake up to the fact that the 20th century and not the 18th, and not the 18th, yes. And I think that it's time that we changed a bit. Changes are necessary for Malaya if it is to keep up with the rest of the world. And I feel that, I for one wouldn't stand by to see Malaya suffer the fate that China did, but through determination to keep to her old ways and her traditions.
Is it
Go ahead,
is it the same way in Thailand? Do the people stick more to their old traditions, or do they look more to the future? Do they look more for new things?
Yes, we look for future too, but we strict to our custom. We like our own customs. I want to say something with Angeliki. I disagree you. In my country, we have a European type house and machine, modern machine, but we have an old custom. We live in old custom, and we have very old one.
Well, it depends on the country, I think, because for example, in our civilization, the Greek civilization, you couldn't hold on to old customs for very long because we're so, I don't know, kind of free thinkers that we have to change all the time.
That is one thing we don't have in Egypt. In Egypt we have a sort of combination of cultures. In Egypt, for instance, if you would go to Cairo, you would go to the new part of Cairo, you would find the big highways,
Excuse me, Ahmed. I think we should give Sarosh a chance to talk.
I'm sorry, our time is almost up. I told you it would be up before we barely got started. But Sarosh, I wish you'd say one thing more about these customs that you still seem to be holding so staunchly.
I like my own way of custom. I like to live peacefully without any argument or crime with our neighbors or friends. And I can't get used to the custom very quickly. But at last, I would like to say thank you to every one of you who for using your very, very special, a very precious time to listen to my opinions, which I think that it nearly didn't give you anything good at all. I thank you very much.
Thank you, Saraj, and Hupswan, and Aiki, and Ahmed Atiya. In addition to getting to know us and letting us get to know you, I think it is helpful to have people with your detached point of view talk with us about our culture, because you help us think about it more creatively. We must say goodbye now until next week at this time.